What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Finger WAG podcast. My name is Gideon Hertz. I am host of the Finger WAG podcast and excited to be back with you today with a post-game show, second post-game of the 25-26 season. Not sure that we'll always do a post-game after every single game as we get into the flow of the regular season, but right now it is August and we are excited to have Georgetown basketball, excited to be covering Georgetown basketball here in Toronto. So we are going to do post games as much as we can, bring you as much content as possible. We'll talk today. Jake Foote's going to jump on since this game was televised. Hopefully everybody was able to watch it on ESPN Plus. Canada beats Georgetown 65-62. Must-win spot for Canada. Tough spot for Georgetown. Played well. Had some ups and downs, had a chance to win at the end, and just came up short. So we will break down the game, give you big takeaways, things that we've seen. We'll talk about some individual players and how things are looking there. And then we have post-game comments from Coach Cooley that we will include in this episode of the podcast. Without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back to the Finger WAG podcast. We are here post-game after a narrow loss to Canada. Georgetown goes down 65-62 in their second Global Jam game. We're here to break it down. We've got Jake Foote. What's up, Jake?
No, thanks for having me, and I hope you're enjoying Toronto.
We are enjoying Toronto. We are excited to be here, excited to see the team play. Glad that the whole of Hoya Nation was able to watch at least this last game. Hopefully we get a win on Saturday so everybody can watch the gold medal game on Sunday as well.
Yeah, it'd be nice to win, get a lot of value out of this tournament, playing 4 games and playing a gold medal game.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into it. Break down our thoughts after this close loss to a talented Canada team that, hasn't played a lot together, obviously, but has a lot of talented players, a lot of high major guys. As I mentioned, Georgetown just loses 65-62 after being in control for most of the game, up 3-5 throughout. And then in the fourth quarter, just offense kind of went cold and Canada did just enough. Georgetown has a heave at the buzzer to tie it up, send it to overtime. Can't connect on that. But a close game against good talent to really stack this team up against. We're going to start with some big takeaways from the game against Canada. And if you have thoughts about the game against Japan as well, we won't talk too much about that. But Georgetown obviously dominates a much, much worse Japan team. What are your biggest takeaways from the game so far, particularly the loss to Canada?
Well, Canada especially, my biggest takeaway is it's kind of what I expected. I don't think it's worth getting too high or too low about any of these results. In reality, they're preseason scrimmages played against teams that haven't been together. And in reality, our group hasn't been together for all that long either. I think that they were physically up for it, that if you watch that Canada game, it looked like we had the athletes that belonged on a high major court. Canada's kind of littered with some high majors, some mid-major, but of their mid-major players, they're guys that have been really, really productive at that level. And like you said, it's a good collection of college talent. And I think physically and athletically, we were up for it. We were able to guard. We were able to switch. A lot of guys looked really good on that end of the court. I think the negatives or the weaknesses of the team reared their head as we expected, which was scoring in the half court, generating good looks on a consistent basis, which again, it's less discouraging to me and more just expected at this juncture, given the guys that they brought.
Yeah, I think goes without saying, but it does need to be said that Georgetown's potentially two best offensive options were not playing, and KJ Lewis and Langston Love. Now, whether Langston Love is actually a top two offensive option, who knows? But he brings something that this team desperately needs. And that was, I think, my biggest takeaway from this game is that uh, it looked like a team that was short of a couple of really important options on the offensive end. It could have used guys who could take over the game like KJ Lewis can and make some open shots and really put some pressure on the Canadian defense like Langston Love can. So I think you're absolutely right that we shouldn't take too much from this. We shouldn't get too high, too low. I do think it's a very, very clear indication that KJ Lewis and Langston Love are important to this team.
Yeah, and it's also an indication, and again, I don't want to put roses on a somewhat mediocre performance yesterday, but it's an indication that they're going to be able to play with most teams that they play with just by showing up and playing hard. You know, if you looked at this roster without KJ and without Langston Love preseason, you'd look at it and be like, damn, that's a probably bottom of the Big East roster. You know, from a distant view, you look at those two guys and they're probably two of our three or four best players. And the fact that you bring a group that's now, like I said, probably a bottom of the Big East type team, and you show up and play against in reality, what's a talented Canada team, and for 32 minutes you were better than them, it's a decent sign, even if it wasn't a pretty 32 minutes.
Yeah, it across two games, the thing that sort of jumps out to me is I think the floor of this team is higher than it was last year. We've yet to see what the ceiling looks like, and we're not going to in this tournament, I don't think, particularly without those two guys. But they've got a solid stable of really serviceable college players who can produce and are very good defensively. And that
Yeah,
really jumps out.
the defense is, you know, last year Thomas gets hurt and you're like, well, the variation of this team goes from really high to really low. And when
Yeah.
Sorber gets hurt, we couldn't guard a thing. And when in the games that we did win without him, it's like, all right, man, I hope we score 80 before they do. Canada has some guys that put the ball in the hoop, you know, and we held them to 33% from the fields. You held Aiden Holloway and Xavier Lee to 6 made field goals. A pretty good defensive effort, especially good from the perimeter guys. I have no gripes with how they played on that end. Malik held his own. DHS, Jeremiah, Isaiah Abraham were all very promising perimeter defenders yesterday.
Yeah, we're going to get into a couple of those guys, but I think we have to start with one of the biggest questions that was coming into this tournament remains a big question despite what we may have seen in that first game against Japan, which was a little bit of a surprise that we saw, I think, Julius start that game. Vince got the start at center for this game against Canada. In talking with Coach Cooley after the fact, I think they're going to try both. They're going to try different lineups. It is very much an open competition right now. So that starting center looks anything but settled. Looks probably where we thought it to be pre-tournament, with Vince having sort of a higher floor, particularly defensively, looking like a slightly more polished player. Julius having a lot of upside, particularly against inferior and smaller competition. But there's a big question there of who's going to take that starting job, and can we get really quality center play? Where are you on the centers after 1-2 games here?
Well, it's like you said, kind of what I expected. I think it's pretty obvious that this is going to be the weakness of the team until somebody kind of matures or comes into their own and really grabs that position. Again, it went how I expected, where when you play a Japanese team that's smaller and where you can just dump it into the post, those are the type of games that Julius is going to look like a world beater because they just can't offer resistance, and he's skilled enough and patient enough where he's going to get to a spot on the low block and score. Then you play a team that has an SEC starting center in Nwoko and Boachi, who's like he's really no good, but he started in the Big East. Guys that can provide a little bit of resistance on the low block and in those situations, Julius then becomes a shell himself, which is something that he's got to work on. And Vince looks more like the guy that's physically up for the challenge. I say that and still caveat it that Vince wasn't very good either. 5 points, 1 rebound in 13 minutes. But where Vince did really hold his own is that there were a couple of instances where he got switched onto wings, switched onto guards, and he was able to command that assignment, basically follow them to the block and protect the rim, which he did very well. So it went, like I said, like I expected, where Julius crushes against the inferior guys. Vince looks more physically up for the challenge against the actual high major players. Both of them need to take a significant step for the team to be as good as they hope to be.
Yeah, and that's borne out in some of the stats we saw from yesterday. One that jumps out to me is I don't always look at plus minus across long stretches, but for the course of a game, I think it can be helpful in spots. And Julius finishes that game -7, Vince +1. And I think that was really, really apparent that without the ability to do much offensively, Julius struggles to help the team right now in those minutes. He also got into foul trouble early on, which basically had him sitting through most of the first half after his first stint. So really did never look like he got into the flow of the game. And when he did in the second half, he was in some rock fights down low with those bigs that you mentioned and wasn't really able to establish himself offensively, just never looked comfortable. Interestingly, Georgetown's best big, quote unquote, based off of plus minus was Seal Juf, who I think I'm interested in your take on Seal. He's obviously, I think, got a long way to go, but showed some things that I think could prove useful in an open front court. What did you think about Seal?
I'm interested in Seal, and I don't think he's dead to rights third in that fight for the center rotation. He's definitely on the outside looking in, but you are right. He's got a long way to go, but kind of physically up for the challenge. The processing might be a little slower than you'd hope, but that's a kid playing his first college minutes ever. What I like about Seal is that Seal played 9 minutes and Seal got 5 rebounds.
Yeah.
Julius and Vince played 21 minutes and got 2 rebounds. And neither of them looked very interested in getting on the boards. If you watch Julius closely, the rebounding leaves a lot to be desired. He'll kind of block out his man in space, and then he's just hoping that the 4 other players swarm the ball and clean up on the glass, which I think we've talked about it in the past, that it serves a purpose if you're guarding a real active guy on the offensive glass, if you can just block him out. But half the time out there, we're playing with 4 guys, 6'5" or 6'6" and less, and Julius is a 7-footer out there. You got to go get the ball. And I think that was somewhat what killed them yesterday is second chance points that Canada got. And Julius and Vince as well were pretty big culprits on that end. Seal, again, probably leaves a lot to be desired offensively, a lot to be desired in the process in the game at this moment, but plays hard. He throws his body around, and if the ball's on the glass, he goes and gets it, which I appreciate a kid playing hard.
Yes, to me, interesting thing about Seal that I did not expect after the first game against Japan, where he looked like he was playing his first college game. He looked a little unsettled offensively. He's actually one of the bigs who looked better against Canada than he did against Japan, which was interesting. He, I think, did exactly what you said. Rebounded, was physical, had a looked overall more comfortable. And you mentioned the rebounding. That was the takeaway for me. Also, what Coach Cooley mentioned post game, that he was overall pleased with the effort and the play, but thought the play on the glass was unacceptable, and that really, I think, was key. And you have to look at those 2 bigs who, there were a lot of just 50-50 balls that looked like you need your 7-footers to go and grab, and somehow after a couple of tips it winds up in a Canadian guard's hands.
Yeah, I mean, you got out rebounded by 18 They got 15 offensive rebounds. You lose a game by one possession. That's your difference right there.
Let's talk about the other big question. Well, there's a lot of big questions, but the other sort of really big question coming into this tournament was about Malik Mack and whether he could take a step this year. In the first game against Japan, he was letting the game come to him fairly deferential, didn't really try to put his foot on the gas. Went up a level in intensity against Canada, but had a rough night shooting the ball. And it's not just him, everybody, both teams could not put the ball in the basket really at all. What are you what do you take away from Max game yesterday?
I think it's really easy to criticize the way he played, and I'm not going to do that. I actually think he was pretty good. He couldn't throw a rock in the ocean, but he commanded pick and rolls pretty well. He was pretty good when he got out in transition, which he threw one garbage junk alley oop, which is a Georgetown staple, but couple times he went to the rim and finished it. He passed the ball pretty well, 11 assists. If Malik's junk game is 14 points and 11 assists, you're probably in good shape. The problem, which is very easy to critique in this situation, is if your point guard takes 21 shots, he has to make more than 5. They have to be good shots. You have to make, 40 to 50% of them. He can't shoot 30% from 2-point range like he did. Again, it's just an easy criticism that if the team's going to be good, they're going to ask a lot of Malik. They're going to give him the ball in these ball screen situations. He's going to be the one that has to make the decision on pass, take a three, take a little floater, get to the rim. And he's got to effectively do that, or else they're going to be junk on the offensive side of the ball.
Yep, I'm with you. I actually think after a somewhat slow start for him in the game, it just looked like he wasn't at the requisite level of intensity to start the game. He got there eventually. He got there after I think he had two frustrating missed shots early on. He had a wide open, you know, 8-foot jumper that he missed, and then a three that he missed, and he was really frustrated. Almost missed the ball bouncing right back to him because he was, slamming his hands down. After that, I thought he locked in and the process actually looked pretty good. I agree on the pick and roll. He was snaking a lot of those pick and rolls, which is something that I think is interesting and potentially useful. And he had to me, what is the most important shot for him in his arsenal this year, which is a little uh, floater runner at the rim that he was able to make in the second quarter. And that was really encouraging. A lot of process stuff that I think went well. There is this question, though. We've mentioned it a lot about his shooting. And look, he just didn't shoot well yesterday, but nobody did. Theory that I'm working on, will try and get more information on it. Probably will not, but I think it's the ball. I think the FIBA ball is different and is messing with some guys. I have absolutely no evidence to corroborate that, but that's what I'm working on.
I mean, it's definitely a different ball. It probably spins a little different way. Malik had one in the first quarter where he beat Holloway down the right baseline, tucked a little left-hander on the baseline, and it hit every portion of the rim and came out. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good shot that should be made, and it's really no fault of Malik's doing. And again, I'm not discouraged by the process of how Malik played, because like of the 21 shots, I don't think there's a lot that I'd be like, yeah, we don't want you shooting that. I think he generated the most quality looks on the team of anybody out there. The threes that he did miss, many of them were pretty open. And you want him shooting a lot of that stuff with confidence. In all honesty, I want him kind of pulling the trigger a little sooner. There were a couple of plays where he had a look from three, would head fake and like one dribble into a mid-range shot. And I'd rather him just take the shot off the catch in rhythm and just say, screw it. It's my ball. That's my shot. But again, he just has to be more efficient. You can't put makeup on a clown or on a doll and say, 5 for 21 is a great game of basketball when that's 16 empty possessions in a game you lose by one possession. I like that he navigated ball screens. I like that he picked his opportunities to go, but You just got to put the ball in the hoop.
Yeah, and I do think there's a piece of this that is hard to answer right now without Lewis and Love, and that's a little bit of a cop out, but without those two guys, this team offensively looks a lot more like it did at the end of last year without Sorber. That is, a lot of the onus is going to be on Malik. And we've seen that, he can sink or swim there. And we saw in the crown where he went off and late in the season where he just really didn't. So I do think with other offensive options out there, it's going to help him. Interesting to me that particularly in the second half, Coach Cooley had Malik off ball a lot. He had DHS initiating a lot of the offense, trying to get him open shots and open looks and just movement. And I think that's helpful. And it's going to be even more helpful when you've got KJ Lewis initiating that as opposed to DHS, you know, who is a legitimate offensive option as well and will drag a little bit more of the defense's attention. So no, I don't think we need to sell anything on Malik yet, but I'm with you that just got to be more efficient, and we're not going to have the answers to that by the end of this tournament, I don't think.
Yeah, totally agree. And again, this is not the time and place to freak out or get too excited. It's a preseason scrimmage, and they're going to look a heck of a lot better with KJ out there. He's going to be their best player. He's going to be their best offensive player and their best defensive player. It's honestly really nice that the defense looks this good without him, who's only going to elevate it.
Let's talk about some of the role guys, and I think I want to go to Caleb Williams first because big question on this team is shooting, and right now their most consistent shooter from deep looks to be Caleb Williams. The stats say 2 for 5. I think the stats are wrong. I think he was 3 for 6.
I agree. I think they gave one of his threes to DHS.
Yeah.
Two
Um,
lefties, and they swapped it up.
yeah. They also at one point had 16 assists on 15 made shots, which mathematically impossible. So take the stats with a little bit of grain of rice. And
Yeah, they're saying we assisted every single basket we scored, huh?
yeah, all the more reason to just follow the finger wag for true live stats and information. But nonetheless, Caleb shoots 40% against Japan from three, either 40 or 50% from three against Canada. The shot looks quicker, it looks more confident. We chatted a little bit with Kyle Williams after the game, and he mentioned how much Caleb has been working on that, and really that it's all about confidence for him, and he is feeling more confident to step in and shoot when he's open. And it looks like that's he's getting results out of that. What do you think about Caleb's shot right now?
Yeah, total believer in the jump shot. I think we kind of alluded to it in the preview pods that he needs to be a 40% three-point shooter or something in that vicinity, and that Sidwell kids in the past have made that jump. He looks ready for it. The mechanics look awesome. It's a short, quick release. It's super repeatable. He gets his feet right. He's shooting it with confidence. I don't think he's going to do a heck of a lot more out there offensively other than that. He's not going to break these guys down off the dribble. He's a good offensive rebounder. He got a couple extra possessions on some long offensive boards, which is kind of his claim to fame at this point. But they need him to be a spacer, especially if he's playing power forward. Bring a bigger guy away from the rim. And I think he's up for it. I pretty much have a really optimistic opinion of how all the role players fared over the last two games, that it looks like we have an increase in quality in those more auxiliary roles big time.
I'm with you. And your upside projection on Caleb was 40% shooter from three. So far, he's been that. And if he is that during the season with a healthy KJ Lewis, Langston Love, that goes a really long way for this offense to be more effective than it was last year.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this team. I don't think it's a good shooting team, but I think the guys that are going to play the most minutes are decent enough shooters. If you put out a lineup of Mack, Love, KJ, Caleb, and Julius, the team can shoot. So you might be able to get away with it. Again, I'm not panicking about the shooting, but you are right that Caleb really kind of needs to distinguish himself as a legitimate perimeter threat for a lot of the offensive stuff to work.
Let's talk a little bit about those role guys because I'm totally with you. And the one that I want to start with, who I'm trying to temper my enthusiasm because we haven't seen a lot of him at the college level, but Isaiah Abraham looks like a guy who can play, man. He consistently makes the right plays. He is active, energetic on both ends, is not going to hurt you. Knocked down a couple of threes yesterday as well. I'm really encouraged by what I see there. And I guess we shouldn't be too surprised. You know, he's a guy that UConn and Hurley recruited, and they're bringing in guys who can absolutely step up and play a role. He looks really solid to me, just like a solid contributor. Where are you on Zay?
I've got a working theory that he's just a bigger, better Wayne Bristol.
That was mine too. I think he looks a lot like Bristol out there, and I
Yeah,
think
where if he gets the thing is, I didn't mind Wayne. He should have been out there more
yeah,
on that bad team, but
yeah,
he's a guy that kind of, might run around a little bit like a chicken with his head cut off, but he gets loose balls. He's over the course of the 2 games, he's ended up wide open for a couple of 3-pointers, and he's made all of them, or at least the ones that where he's egregiously wide open. I still think there's a little mental thing that needs to click for him. There's been some defensive miscommunications where it looks like he's been the culprit. There was a play where we scored and then they came right down and TJ Hurley was wide open and it looked like Zay was at fault. And the thing is about those miscommunications is, and this is something you learn the more you play college basketball, it's okay if you miscommunicate every once in a while. You just can't miscommunicate and leave the best shooter in the gym wide open, which is what they did a couple times. And
yeah.
Hurley's was a 45% 3-point shooter at UVM. He's going to make you pay for that. So, my expectations on him haven't, increased or decreased. I think he's going to be like a real serviceable 8th or 9th man that you get in your program and you just try to develop the offensive stuff, make him a guy that can hopefully score in transition, score a little bit off the bounce. And again, he's got the physical traits. He plays with a high motor. He's a Paul VI and a Hurley kid. Those type of kids don't walk into a gym and get punked. I think he's got a decent chance to be a good ball player.
Yeah, I appreciate your tempered expectations on him because mine are wildly enthusiastic. But I think you're right that he's a long-term fit, hopefully, and
Yeah,
can raise the floor of this team even further.
I agree. And I mean, we're so far away from it, but there's a decent chance he gets a waiver for last year from
Yeah,
Hurley playing him 2 games after semester 1 for like 6 minutes. And so he might be a guy that if you keep around has 4 more years of eligibility, and this is his de facto freshman year. And he's probably a little ahead of the curve for most freshmen at this juncture. So again, long-term project, probably contributes this year. He's a guy that I feel pretty comfortable throwing out there as your 5th guy on the floor and saying that he can at least hang. I criticized some of the off-ball defensive stuff where he lost his man, but was very good on ball, getting in a stance. Yeah. Him, Jeremiah, DHS, all 3 of them were extremely hard to break down off the dribble, which is going to be very helpful that, no matter kind of who they interchange 1 through 4, they're going to guard.
I do want to talk about DeShawn Harris-Smith as well. He looks like he sprained his ankle at the end of the Canada game. So I would expect that he is done for this tournament. He looked like he was in a lot of pain on the bench. I don't think it was any. Yeah.
It didn't look good on the broadcast. I think it was Mahi undercut him. And that was a junk 3-pointer that didn't have a prayer going in. But again, you lose a game by 1 possession in the States. That's a flagrant foul where you shoot free throws and get the ball back and you win the game. We've also come to learn that his name's pronounced DeShawn. So I just want to
did we?
Yes, or at least that's how Cooley was pronouncing it in his presser. I just want to put that.
Oh, appreciate that.
that we're
Was
gonna
that the
start
presser?
pronouncing
And
him.
I didn't recognize that.
We're gonna start pronouncing him DeShawn.
DeShawn, yeah,
But honestly, of everybody there, he's who I'm most encouraged about.
yeah,
I think that it reared its head yesterday compared to the Japan game that he has a much harder time getting to his spots and taking advantage of mismatches when he's playing people his own size and athleticism. The Japanese kid's just he was too big, too strong for him, and he just bullied him down to the block. And the way they played yesterday, he honestly played a lot of like small ball 3-4, and
yeah,
he was guarded by Elias Ralph a lot, who's a 6'7" stretch four, and DeShawn has a little bit of a harder time walking a guy like that down to the block and becoming a real offensive mismatch. That being said, he scored 11 points. He hit an open three. He's the best rebounder they have at this tournament, I think, pretty clearly. And awesome defender. I'm extremely excited about what he does defensively. I thought that Cooley was kind of a little crazy when he said he does a lot of things on that end that are similar to Micah.
yeah,
And then I watched yesterday and I'm like, shit, he does a lot of things that are similar to Micah.
yeah,
He was really great in transition where
yeah,
Canada would get out like 3-on-3, 3-on-2, and balls in the hands of Aiden Holloway or Xavier Lee, top 5 to 10 team in the country. And he stood him up in transition like 3 or 4 times. And then, even when it got into a half court and Holloway tried to break him down, he totally held his own on that end defensively, guarding guards. And again, he rebounds space better than anybody they have. He's going to play.
yeah,
Even if the jumper's totally broke, I think he's like a 25 to 30 minute a game guy. He's Cooley to a T.
yeah,
And he's going to show up and just be a tough kid. He's probably not going to walk on that ankle for 3 or 4 weeks, but
yeah,
once he gets right again, he's going to be smack dab in the middle of the rotation.
yeah. I'm with you on it. He also finished yesterday a team high +8, actually game high +8, which I think is just a testament to what he's able to do out there. And I think he's another guy who his offense is going to look better when he's around guys like KJ, Langston, some improved talent where he's not trying to create as much on his own against
Yeah,
those bigger guys, but is able to be the recipient of off of cuts and finishing at the rim and just being big and strong and getting to the rack, which he's able to do. He is massive, man. He
he's
is
a
just a
fire hydrant.
absolute truck.
Yeah, he's a fire hydrant. He's
Yeah.
strong as an ox. I love the idea of playing him as a four, where the shooting isn't all that critical. I think he's going to rebound like a forward. I think you could do this little de facto KJ Lewis, DeShawn Harris Smith front court that is very much on the small side, but is like a kind of a total nightmare athleticism and strength wise. And you can really be a team that gets out and run, which again, this is a preseason scrimmage. So you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. But this team really needs to run. They're not going to score in the half court well. Every time they got in the half court, it's tough to watch.
Yeah.
KJ is an extremely good transition player. DeShawn Harris Smith is solid. He's probably not the athlete speed wise and verticality wise that he was advertised coming out of high school, but you get him with a full head of steam one on one. He's tough to handle. This team would find a lot of easy baskets if Mack, DeShawn Harris Smith, KJ are out on the break a lot, which they need to do. And I like the idea of them basically being your forwards, because if you play four guards with a big, you kind of have no choice but to run.
Yep. I'm with you. And it also just emphasizes how important defensive rebounding is to that. That's got to be the key, and just
Yeah,
not good enough yesterday.
but I don't think if you play DeShawn as the as your power forward, I don't think you're subtracting anything on the
No, not at
glass,
all.
because I think he, like any alternative, whether it's Caleb or Fort or Abraham, I think he's a better rebounder than all of them.
Yeah,
And he kind of plays bigger than all of them. Like Caleb's going to be a perimeter spacer. Abraham is definitely more of like that three prototypical, glue guy wing.
Yeah.
Fort is definitely of the bigger variety, but and I actually I'm like we can talk about him in a second if you'd like, but I'm pretty high on what I've seen from Fort, but he's another one that's going to take a lot of time. I think DeShawn is your best bet there, and I was very encouraged with how he played. He looks confident. He looks bigger and stronger. I think they're going to get a good version of him.
Yeah. I'm with you. Let's close out with just your final thoughts. Anything on Fort, Jeremiah Williams, or anything else that you're looking for from these
Yeah,
guys in the next one or
I'll
two
give
games here?
I'll give some minor thoughts on the two of them that I actually liked what I saw. Fort was, I think he was like a -10 yesterday, and he was probably the worst guy we had out there in terms of like being up for it, but which isn't a total surprise. He's playing his first real college minutes. He had one possession though in the first half. I don't know if anybody's crazy enough to go back and find it, but he got switched on to Holloway, who is, expected to be an all SEC player, and he's a very athletic guard. Holloway kicked it back out to Xavier Lee, and Lee just chest pat, didn't even think twice, just gave it right back to Holloway and said, "Go at this kid." And Fort stood him up. Whole
Yeah.
possession, like 12 seconds, guarded the best, or what's thought to be the best guard in the gym, and held his own. And I think that is Jayden Fort's pathway to being a good high major player, is this kind of total switchability on defense, somewhat of a cleaner on the glass. He doesn't even have to ever look at the rim, and he can be valuable. I also think there was one play. Julius was kind of a nightmare out there defensively yesterday, but Julius got dragged out to the corner on a 3-point shooter. Guy head faked him. Julius was basically in the third row, and the guy went by him. And Fort was playing power forward alongside him, and Fort was underneath the hoop. And I think it was Hurley doesn't really want to challenge the rim as a penetrator slasher at all. But he took 2 dribbles in, and Fort was there. And I'm like, oh, I thought to myself, I'm like, that's valuable that when Julius is out there, who might not provide the most rim protection, that you Fort can kind of be this de facto some sort of resistance at the rim, which again, just pivots back to my original point that his pathway to playing is that he's just this kind of 1 through 5 even switchable defender that can defend guards on the perimeter, protect the rim a little bit. The game just needs to slow down for him. He's got to simplify it, realize he doesn't need to be a threat offensively at all. And I think in time, he's going to be a valuable piece. On Jeremiah, I'm a big fan. I think he's your best perimeter defender. And I know I've said good things about Abraham and DeShawn thus far. He's really good on that end, just
Yeah.
on ball, navigating ball screens. I have another working theory that he's kind of like early UConn Hassan Diarra, where they brought him off the bench. He didn't have to really run the show. He maybe was good for a corner 3 a game, but he just came in for 14 minutes a game and just guarded the other team's best guard. And I think that's Jeremiah's role on this team. I wouldn't be opposed once you have KJ and once you have this kind of more obvious threat offensively to basically for Jeremiah to take a cut out of Mack's minutes.
Yeah.
That Mack doesn't need to be a 34 minute a night guy, 34 minutes a night guy where he could be like a 28 and it's a really aggressive 28, and Jeremiah can be like a 16-minute defensive first glue guy. I just, again, whatever he does on offense is a bonus. He's really good on the defensive end. I'm a big fan of what he's looked like over the 2 days.
I'm with you for sure. And I think there were a couple moments where he looked like a guy who could break down a defender and go get a bucket, which this team needed. Made
Yeah,
a couple of those
I think
off the little right-handed
he did it at the end of the
runners that
third
worked.
quarter. He did it at the end of the third quarter where he said just like, shit, I'll do it myself. Which again, we don't really want him doing a lot of that. He's not going to be efficient doing that. But he is a guy that he's put the ball in the hoop at the college level. I could look it up real quick, but he's probably scored 1,000 points in his career or just about. So he's not totally anemic on that end. Again, if your team is serious, he's a role guy that's not playing a ton, but when he does play, he's just going to be really valuable on the defensive side of the ball. He scored 722 points in his career, so not 1,000. I was overshooting it a little bit, but he can be fine on that end.
Maybe he gets it this year.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe.
all these fifth year guys are breaking records, huh?
Yeah. Well, we are gonna. I'm gonna jump to audio from Coach Cooley post game, but we appreciate Jake your thoughts jumping on here. Excited for another off day for the guys today, and then another game against Brazil on Saturday. They played Brazil in a friendly pre-tournament, so they have seen Brazil. Just talking to some of the other media folks there about Brazil's game against Canada. Brazil's a scrappy team that seems like they have a little bit more chemistry, have maybe played together a little bit more. So Georgetown's going to need to bring energy, and without DHS it's going to be a challenge, but I think if they bring the intensity, I think they are more talented and more skilled than Brazil, and should be able to win that game. Though it's going to be another rock fight. There's going to be a lot of rock fights this year.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be a rock fight. Pretty much every game we're in, I think, is going to be a rock fight. And Brazil, I mean, just a very quick preview. They have one guy who's really kind of showcased himself at the tournament, 6'9", kind of a stretch big named Nathan Mariano, who plays professionally in Brazil. I think he might have been on some draft radars, but he really hasn't been all that effective in Brazil's first division, and he's getting on the older side. He's like 21 now. But he killed Canada. He was like 25-10, made some threes. He's going to be the challenge. It'll be interesting to see who they use to guard a guy like that. You know, a 6'9" stretch guy. If that's somebody that they assign to Caleb, or if that's somebody that, you know, Vince or your center takes. Yeah, just excited to get some more data on what the group looks like. Again, don't overreact. I urge everybody not to. It's a preseason scrimmage. Now you're down KJ Love and DHS, who are probably three of your best 6 guys, maybe 3 of your best 4 guys.
Yeah.
And I know I've been pretty critical over the course of this entire conversation, but generally encouraged that they've showed up and they've looked up for it, especially physically. It looks like a Cooley team.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine they look a heck of a lot better in 7 months than they do right now.
Yep. And you will hear shortly that Cooley is encouraged. He is not freaking out, and I encourage that you all shouldn't either. There's a lot to like right now, and I agree. They're gonna continue to improve, and this is a good experience, an opportunity for them.
Agreed. Yeah, and it's great to be playing against people that aren't the guys you play in practice in a competitive environment in August. It's a worthwhile tournament. I'm glad they signed up for it.
Yep. All right. We will have more after the break here and more from Toronto Global Jam. Jake, thanks for your thoughts. We appreciate it. Hoyas Saxon.
Hoyas Saxa, thanks for having me, as always.
Oh, you're good, man. Do your job. You're good.
So different test than yesterday for sure. What did you see from your guys in a really tight game?
A really positive thing I saw was how hard our men played. I thought we played really, really hard. You know, there are going to be days where the ball doesn't go in the basket, right? So I thought our energy was good. I thought their physicality on the interior, you know, 54 rebounds to our 36, 15 offensive rebounds. The only thing I'm disappointed is we didn't get on the offensive glass. And again, we had some good looks. The ball just didn't go in the second half. I thought we had good pace. The game came to a complete. I thought it was officiated well. Both teams played really, really hard. Had even an opportunity right at the very end. We didn't come up with a 50-50 ball. So these games, when you play these high-level games, it comes down to little things. A ball screen, a deflection, a free throw, a missed shot, a layup. We had all of that. So I thought our men played hard. This came up a little short, but that's not going to deter where we're trying to go. You know what I mean? I thought we were a little emotionally and mentally fatigued.
Good to get a late game test early in your year. What did you see from the late game execution that you liked, and what would you like to improve?
Well, we got 5 really wide open looks that just didn't go in.
Yeah.
They didn't go in, and again, they were fortunate on a couple of back screens where, you know, the ball bobbled, they fouled the ball. I mean, again, a more veteran team we play, right? Obviously, they have not been together long, but they have way more game experience, older men. So I'm not disappointed in our effort. I'm not disappointed in the outcome of the game. I thought we got better today. The reason why we came to this was to improve. And I thought we improved today, we just didn't win the game.
You mentioned Canada's seniority. How much do you miss someone like KJ?
I mean, you don't have Langston, who's, a senior, KJ, a veteran player. DeShawn gets hurt in a really critical situation. Kayvon Mulready knows our system. Again, you're playing Fort, second game of his career. Seal, second game of his career. Julius, fifth game of his career. Vince has played, but he hasn't played consistent minutes. So you're playing all these guys that just haven't played a lot, but they grew up today. We grew up today. You know what I mean? Give Canada all the credit. They made the right plays at the right time, and that's why they won the game.
You went with Vince in the starting lineup today, Julius against Japan. Was that matchup dependent?
No. I mean, we were going to look at different matchups. It has nothing to do with who we play. It has to do with what we're looking for, where we're trying to go. This is August 50th. Well, I don't know what the date is. We're trying to get ready for November, December, January, February, March. The goal is to come here, get comfortable with one another, play in a really high-level competitive situation. This is much better than being at, the beach, hanging out in the backyard, doing absolutely dog shit, right? Today we got better. It's unfortunate that we didn't win. We gave ourselves a chance to win. Our late game execution wasn't good defensively, and then they blasted us on the glass. That's unacceptable. That's my only disappointment.
Last one, we got day off here and then Brazil. What are you looking for in this last game of the group stage?
We had a great friendly game against them. I'm looking to challenge our men from a situation where we have to be more mentally tough, more physically tough, more emotionally tough, right? Our young guys really, really grew up today. And again, you saw how composed and you saw how experienced Team Canada was, right? Between, Enoch, very experienced, Lee, very experienced, right? Johnny Alabama, really, I don't know some of these kids' names. Zero, they had some experience on the floor. We had a lot of puppies out there. A lot of puppies out there. But them puppies, they're going to grow to be dogs, big dogs. So I'm excited about what we got.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
So there you have Coach Cooley's take on his team's narrow loss to Canada. A lot to take from it. Obviously, he thinks the team got better. I think that's definitely true. He was pleased with the effort, intensity. Chalked it up to not a lot of just missed shots not going down, and I think that was true from both teams, as we mentioned. Georgetown shoots 28% from the floor and 31% from three. It's not great, but Canada 33% from the floor, 27% from three. Just not a lot of shots going down for either team. Bit of a rock fight for sure, and Georgetown just in it at the end there with a chance. You heard from Jake, exhibition game, FIBA rules. DeShawn gets undercut a little bit on that heave or end of shot clock heave. Maybe that's a flagrant and NCAA. Maybe that should have been called. Who knows? I think Georgetown right in there to win this game, and I think that's encouraging despite all of the challenges that we talked about. This team is growing up, and I think that's the takeaway from me from Coach Cooley is the team grew up. They're getting better. This is a really positive experience. And as we mentioned, we've got a day off here and then Brazil at 2 p.m. on Saturday. I don't know if that game will be broadcast anywhere. I don't believe Sportsnet is covering that game. So I think it'll be another one without any official TV coverage. Maybe I think it was Kyle Williams who was going live on Instagram. Maybe he'll have that as well. But I can tell you for sure that the Finger WAG will be there. We will have live updates from the game. We'll have pre-game, post-game, all of the analysis for you, and then hopefully some more analysis from a gold medal game on Sunday with Georgetown. Fingers crossed there that they do enough to get into it. We'll look and see if we can find any information about tiebreaker scenarios, because that's where we sit right now with 3 teams all with 1 win. I'm sorry, Brazil's got 2 wins. Canada and the US, Georgetown, both have 1 win. So if the US, Georgetown beats Brazil on Saturday, and assuming Canada beats Japan, which we would expect, you've got 3 teams with 2 wins each, and then I think it comes down to point differential. So I think it's a question of, can Georgetown put the hammer down on Brazil, and if they do, I think they've got a good chance to go to the gold medal game, which would be nice to finish things out. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. I do expect that we're not going to see DeShawn Harris-Smith again, and he might be down for a little bit, but hopefully he can get healthy for the beginning of the season. Again, he looked like he was in a lot of pain, and that nasty sprain of the ankle, but I'm hopeful that he'll be okay moving forward after getting some rest. And we will have all of the coverage for you. As always, follow us on the socials. Make sure you're tuned in to the podcast, YouTube, the fingerwag.com website, and make sure you drop us your thoughts and questions. We'll try and answer them. We'll ask Coach Cooley, we'll ask the guys on the ground here. Drop us your thoughts, drop us your questions. We'll do our best to be responsive to you all, because that's why we're here. All right, that's it from this episode of the Finger Wag Pod. Tune in for more coverage from Canada as the Georgetown takes on Brazil on Saturday. Hoyas.